Hello everyone, and welcome to another Cut Rate Commander Precon Upgrade Guide, the series where we take a look at Precon decks and bring them up to cut rate standards. My name is Grazzet, and today we'll be looking at the Tinker Time Precon from March of the Machine and its face commander, Gimbal Gremlin Prodigy, which we'll be bringing up from its roughly $40 price point to an increased budget of $75 after upgrades. But before we continue, just a quick reminder that, at the time of uploading this, the channel's 10k subscriber giveaway is still going and has been extended to April 29th, in which one lucky winner will have the opportunity to win a $100 Urtet Remnant of Memnarch deck built by yours truly, as well as a plethora of accessories and upgrades for it. So if you're interested in signing up for your chance to win, be sure to check out the link above or in the description for the full build and how to enter. Additionally, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you like this content and would like me to continue making more videos like this in the future. And if you're feeling particularly generous, please consider buying me a coffee at the link in the description to keep me caffeinated as I work on more of these builds. Also, be sure to stick around until the end of the video to see which commander build we'll be covering next, and what commanders you'll be voting for an upcoming episode. So, with that out of the way, let's start by taking a look at the commander and playstyle. Gimbal Gremlin Prodigy is a 4/4 Gremlin Artificer that costs 2 and Temur and has the following abilities. Firstly, he grants all artifact creatures we control trample. And secondly, at the beginning of our end step, he creates a 0/0 red Gremlin artifact creature token and then puts X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is equal to the number of differently named artifact tokens we control. Breaking down his core stats, Gimbal is sporting a sizable CMC, a slightly below average stat block for his cost, and a pair of abilities that allow us to create bigger and bigger artifact creatures depending on the number of unique artifact tokens we're able to get into play, while simultaneously providing those tokens, along with all our other artifact creatures, with the ability to crash through blockers. Upon closer examination of Gimbal's abilities, we can see that they're very reminiscent to that of the already existing Urza Chief Artificer, in which they both passively generate bodies for us that scale with the number of artifacts we have in play, as well as empowering those bodies along with any other artifact creatures we happen to be running to allow them to more easily bypass blockers and get in for damage. That said, while Urza's tokens care about any artifacts in play to power themselves up, the tokens Gimbal creates only care about the number of unique artifact tokens we have in play at the time of their creation, requiring any build that aims to get maximum value out of these tokens to be able to produce a wide variety of distinctive tokens if we want them to be anything other than a small body. Though on a properly set up board filled with unique tokens, it can easily result in a free double-digit stat block creature with trample for us on each of our turns. So, as we can see, Gimbal is very much an artifact tokens matter commander, aiming to take advantage of boards chock full of unique artifact token types to create large bodies for us turn after turn and swing in with them, alongside other artifact creatures, for huge chunks of damage thanks to the trample he provides them with. And the build out of the box does an admirable job of reflecting that game plan, providing us with both new and old sources of artifact token generation to bulk up the tokens Gimbal creates, as well as various means to use those tokens to net us additional utility out of their intended uses via either generating us value, or alternatively, to use them to inflict damage via either burn or by animating our non-creature artifact tokens en masse and swinging in with them instead. The problem, however, is that, at the end of the day, for all the effort we're going through to set up our board with unique token types, the only payoff we'll be getting is one vanilla artifact body every turn. So we'll need to ensure that that body is as big as we can possibly make it to make sure all the effort we invest in setting up Gimbal is worth it. As such, in this upgrade, we'll be focusing on adding in even more unique token generating sources to the build to make Gimbal's tokens even bigger, as well as slotting in a handful of means to get additional uses out of our commander's token generation by either copying the trigger or making non-legendary copies of Gimbal himself. From there, after we've added in additional ways to mass animate our non-artifact creature tokens to swing in with, and additional ways for us to use our artifact token creatures to dig deeper into our deck for more token generation and payoffs, we're left with a build that can absolutely flood the board with artifact tokens that we can either use to slowly build up value over time as we accumulate more and more bodies, or that we can instead use to alpha strike our opponents by turning all our tokens into creatures and wiping out the table in one big overwhelming swing. So let us planeswalk to Kaladesh, where Gitaxias and his Phyrexian Invasion forces are facing unexpectedly strong resistance at the city of Ghirapur as they battle for control of the Aetherflux Reservoir. It is here, fighting alongside the rebel hero Pia Nolar, the notorious skyship pirate captain Grazzet, and the recently escaped convicted murderer Darin Baral, that we find their strange ally and our commander, Gimbal, the not only sapient but genius-level gremlin. Knowing full well the catastrophic repercussions to the Aether cycle the Phyrexians could cause if the reservoir fell into their hands, this gremlin artificer savant has unleashed his arsenal of cutting-edge Aether inventions against them, each as powerful as the console's own dreadnoughts, if not more so, leaving his new allies more than happy to have him on their side, despite them not understanding a word he says and him occasionally snacking on their equipment between battles. So, now that we have a better understanding of the commander and playstyle, let's take a look at the cards we'll be keeping from the base build. Starting off with our retained creature entries, we'll first be focusing on keeping as many unique artifact token generators as possible to make the tokens Gimbal creates for us as big as possible. As such, we'll be hanging on to Gilded Goose as a repeatable source of food tokens and ramp if needed, Whirler Rogue and Sharding Sphinx as sources of Thopter tokens that can also get us extra value out of our tokens by either using them to make our creatures unblockable or making more Thopters for us as they deal damage, Cutthroat Negotiator and Rashmi and Ravagon as repeatable ways to generate treasure tokens that also double as sources of card advantage, either from our or our opponent's decks, with the latter also netting us free spells thanks to our tokens to boot, Tireless Tracker as an easy-to-proc source of clue tokens thanks to its Landfall Investigates to provide us with both a unique token and repeatable card advantage, Schema Thief as a means for us to repeatedly create token copies of our opponent's artifacts to get us even more unique tokens into play, as well as allowing us to use those artifacts ourselves, and Felden of the Third Path serving as pseudo-reanimation to get us temporary token artifact copies of any creatures destroyed by our opponents to be used again while enabling our commander. We'll then also be hanging on to Tireless Provisioner, who gives us easy access to food and treasure tokens on one body thanks to its landfall trigger for added versatility to our token production, as well as Academy Manufactor, which may not create any tokens on its own, but can turn any single clue, food, or treasure token we create into one of each instead to tack on additional ramp, draw, or life gain to some of our most common token generators, while also typically getting us at least one or two unique token types into play as well. Then wrapping up our kept creature entries, we'll be holding on to some artifact payoffs in the form of Hedron Detonator, who tacks on some serviceable burn to every artifact token that comes into play to soften up our opponent's life totals, while also giving us the option to turn our excess tokens into impulse draw as needed, Sandstep War Riders, which take advantage of our wide variety of unique tokens to repeatedly load up our weakest creatures with +1/+1 counters, those generally being 1/1 artifact creature tokens that can then put their newly acquired bulk to use thanks to Gimbal's trample granting, and a Shimmer Dragon, who usually comes into play with hexproof thanks to our artifact tokens, and then can use those tokens as manaless and repeatable sources of card advantage to ensure our hands stay nice and full. Then proceeding to our instant carryovers, we'll be focusing our efforts in this category onto holding on to the best removal options that the base build has to offer, with both Reality Shift and Chaos Warp staying in as relatively cheap spot removal to help us deal with either creatures or a variety of common threat types, Spell Swindle keeping its spot as well as an expensive but on-theme counterspell that can net us a tidy sum of treasure tokens after it resolves to get more tokens into play as well as ramp us, and Perplexing Test making the cut as an on-theme wipe that can clear the board of non-tokens at instant speed to clear the way for our tokens so they can swing in for maximum damage. And then as our final instant holdover, we have Masterful Replication, which we can use to get us access to Golem tokens, but in reality we'll be using to turn all our rocks, artifact tokens, and small creature tokens into the biggest artifact creature we have in play, enabling us to perform game-ending alpha strikes on token-laden board states. Then continuing on the artifact token weaponizing game plan, our first retained sorcery will be Rise and Shine, which will always be casting for its overload cost to permanently turn all our non-creature artifact tokens, rocks, and utility artifacts into 4/4s, amassing an instant trampling army for us alongside our commander that we'll hopefully be able to use to end the game on the spot. Then from there, we'll be switching gears to holding on to some on-theme core stat pieces to further improve or benefit from our token game plan, with Crack Open and Root Out both hanging on to their spots as serviceable back row removal options that provide us with one-time token generation as well in the form of treasures and clues respectively, and Thoughtcast and Reverse Engineer staying in as well as initially expensive card advantage sources that our artifact tokens can help reduce in price, either down to a single mana thanks to Affinity or down to 2 mana thanks to Improvise, allowing our artifact tokens to help cast it. And concluding our preserved sorceries, both Echo Storm and Saheeli's Artistry will be holding on to their positions as solid artifact copying effects, with the former potentially allowing us to get multiple token copies of our non-token artifacts into play depending on how many times we've lost our commander, and the latter allowing us to get an artifact token copy of any of our non-artifact creatures to provide yet another unique token to further empower Gimbal's token production. It's then on to our retained enchantments, which we'll open by hanging on to the token generating Curse of Opulence, whose gold token production is crucially different from treasure despite having the same effect, thereby giving us access to another unique token type while still ramping us, as well as Thopter Spy Network, which provides us with another easy to proc source of Thopter tokens as well as being a repeatable source of card advantage that our trampling and evasive artifacts can use to draw us up to 3 cards per turn. Ghirapur Aether Grid will then also be keeping its position in the build, serving as another means for us to weaponize our mass artifact token production by turning our artifact tokens into manaless and repeatable damage that we can use as removal to deal with threats, or as burn to soften up our opponent's life totals even further. And finally, Imprisoned in the Moon will stay in as our final enchantment carryover, which may not contribute to the main game plan, but still provides excellent removal that effectively turns our opponent's commanders and or other powerful creatures, lands, or walkers into a very hard to retrieve paperweight. Then moving on to our artifact carryover entries, we'll find that this category will be primarily dedicated to preserving the excellent ramp pieces included in the base build, with the Mana Rock Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Gruul Signet, Izzet Signet, and Simic Signet, all retaining their positions as excellent cheap sources of ramp that help speed up and or fix our mana base, Replicating Ring and Skyclave Relic maintaining their spots as well as rocks that can create additional artifact tokens given either enough time or if their kicker cost is paid, and Inspiring Statuary wrapping up our kept artifact ramp sources by turning all our artifact tokens into mana rocks that we can use to pay for our non-artifact spells to speed up our mana base even further. And then, as our final 2 remaining artifact holdovers, Bloodforged Battleaxe will stay in as an easy-to-trigger source of artifact copies of itself that we can use to improve our trampling token's damage output, while Combine Chrysalis will retain its position as a solid token payoff that grants all our artifact creature tokens evasion on top of the trample our commander gives them to make intercepting them even harder. Nearly at the end now, our kept Planeswalker category will see us hang on to the only walker included in the base build, Saheeli Sublime Artificer, who is both an easy-to-proc repeatable source of servo tokens, on top of allowing us to temporarily turn any of our artifact tokens into artifact copies of other creatures or artifacts to empower Gimbal's token creation even more, while also providing us with additional utility. And finally, reaching our land-based carryovers, we'll start off with our kept mana lands, in which Command Tower, Frontier Bivouac, and Path of Ancestry will all be staying in as lands that tap for all our colors, Exotic Orchard retaining its spot as it can generally tap for most of our colors off our opponent's lands while coming into play untapped, the Reveal lands Frostboil Snarl, Game Trail, and Vine Glimmer Snarl all carrying over as dual lands that tend to come into play untapped thanks to our high number of basics to help speed up our mana base, the Battle land Cinderglade staying in as well as another dual-colored land that makes use of our basics to come into play untapped, the Scrylands Temple of Abandon, Temple of Epiphany, and Temple of Mystery all holding onto their spots as more duals that, while slow, do help improve consistency with their ETB Scry, the slow fetches Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse both carrying over as additional sources of fixing, as well as a means to trigger our non-zero number of landfall triggers twice by themselves, and Myriad Landscape maintaining its position as our last mana land to provide cheap and reliable land ramp from our land slot. And finally, with no utility lands to cover, we'll be keeping 8 islands, 7 mountains, and 6 swamps from the base build as our basics to round out our mana base. That leaves us with a final tally of 76 cards, including basic lands we'll be keeping from the base build, leaving us with 24 cards to replace. So, now that we've covered all the cards that made the cut from the core build, let's move on to our upgrades. Opening with our creature upgrades, we'll first begin by further expanding our build's unique artifact token production capability by replacing non-token creating creatures from the base build with a new wave of legendary artifact token generators, starting with the too expensive Hellkite Igniter being cut in favor of Svella Ice Shaper, who initially gives us access to Icy Manalith tokens to help ramp us, and later serves as a mana sink that we can pump mana into to cast spells from our deck. The again 2-mana intensive and slow workshop elders being axed to make room for Togo Goblin Weaponsmith, whose landfall rock token production is both easy to trigger and gives us access to additional removal and burn in the form of equipable shocks, and Vidalcan Humiliator's useful but niche on attack stat reduction and ability cancelling being replaced by Volo Itinerant Scholar, who, alongside his journal, provides us with repeatable card advantage that benefits from our wide variety of different creature types. From there, we'll then proceed to replace some of our existing token creators with better legendary ones, with Pia and Kieran Nalar's one-time token production and removal being swapped out for Kibo Ukabi Prince, whose symmetrical banana production gives us additional ramp, life gain, and even grows him as our opponents use them, on top of also being an on-attack source of artifact destruction, and Everquill Phoenix's self-reanimating feather token production losing its spot to Brutaclad Telcor Engineer, who not only gives us access to Phyrexian Mirror tokens, but also gives us the option to turn all our tokens into copies of the strongest token we have in play to generate an instant army to alpha strike in with. And then, as our last few new legendary token generating additions, we'll be replacing the solid artifact payoff and Lord Master of Ethereum with the arguably better fitting Psy Master Thopterist, who provides us with additional passive Thopter token production as well as the means to turn our excess tokens into card advantage to dig for more token generators, payoffs, or finishers, and cutting the pseudo-stunning token payoff Junkwinder, which has admittedly a strong argument to be kept in the build thanks to locking down non-land permanents so long as we keep creating tokens, in favor of Avia Pashari, Sage Lifecrafter, who gives us access to construct tokens that scale with our board state to pile on the damage alongside the tokens Gimbal creates, as well as serving as an additional source of servos for some added redundancy. Then quickly running down our new non-legendary token generating additions, we'll be axing Pain Distributor, symmetrical treasure token production, and occasional burn for Chrome Host Seed Shark, whose incubator token production gives us access to additional big trampling bodies to swing in with, the expensive and slow Thopter assembly being scrapped for Loyal Apprentice, who hits the board much sooner and doesn't require as many hoops to jump through to create Thopters for us, the mediocre wipe Vampire's Vengeance being replaced with Third Path Iconoclast, giving us access to artifact soldier tokens that we can easily proc off our large selection of non-creature spells, and the Slow Rock Fractured Power Stone being shelved to make room for Gala Greeters, who provides us with repeatable treasure token production to ramp us, on top of growing itself and gaining us life as more and more artifact token creatures come into play. And lastly, wrapping up our creature upgrades, we'll be adding some payoffs to the build by cutting the expensive and unreliable 8 from the Cowl for the mass artifact animating Cyberdrive Awakener to give us access to another way to turn all our non-token artifacts into creatures on top of making them evasive as well, and the bit too generic draw spell Stroke of Genius and the much too unpredictable draw spell Dance with Calamity both losing their spots to the more on-theme draw sources Research Thief and Curiosity Crafter, each of which turn our artifact creature tokens into repeatable sources of card advantage as they crack in for damage by simply existing. It's then on to our instant upgrades, whose only two changes will be swapping out the ramp spell Weirding Wood for the token generating Urza's Command to give us access to Power Stone tokens and more constructs to further fill up our board with artifact tokens, and replacing the two land focused removal spell Struggle to Survive with a much more reliable Beast Within to better deal with any of our opponent's threats. Then skipping to our artifact upgrades, as we won't be making any changes to our sorceries or enchantments, we'll start off by adding in some additional ways to trigger our commander's token production, with the far too expensive ramp sources Ichor Elixir and Brass's Bounty being removed to make space for Strionic Resonator and the Lithoform Engine, both of which can cheaply copy Gimbal's ability as it procs, with the latter also letting us copy other types of spells while they're on the stack for additional utility, and the passable but somewhat basic land ramp spell Path of the Animist losing its spot to the non-legendary clone-making Helm of the Host, which can progressively get us more and more non-legendary copies of our commander into play, which by extension also gets us more of the Gremlin tokens he creates, in addition to making the AoE trample he provides difficult to remove unless our opponents are able to wipe the board. And as our final changes to our artifacts, we'll be cutting the removal spells Fiery Confluence and Spine of Isha in favor of the repeatable draw Tamio's Journal and Idol of Oblivion provide. The former via its clue token generation that we can also use to tutor for anything if we stockpile them, and the latter by us simply creating tokens and costing us no mana to do so. Nearing the end now, our Planeswalker upgrades will see 2 new additions added to the final build, with one of our spare forests being replaced with Saheeli Filigree Master, who provides us with repeatable card selection and draw, token creation via Thopters, and a decent artifact anthem on her easy-to-reach ult to power up our board if needed, and one of our excess mountains being exchanged out for Karn Living Legacy, who instead gives us access to Power Stone tokens for additional ramp, the ability to dig deep into our deck for more resources, and an ult that's effectively a more powerful version of Ghirapur Aether Grid to allow our artifact tokens to inflict even more damage and burn. And lastly, as our only land upgrade, we'll be terraforming the Bounce Land Simic Growth Chamber into the artifact token, creating Mirix, giving us access to one final unique type of token in the form of Phyrexian Mites to further empower Gimbal's tokens. So, now that we've covered all 24 cards that we've upgraded from the core build, let's take a look at the breakdown for this Precon upgrade. This deck currently has 28 creatures including the commander, 7 instants, 7 sorceries, 4 enchantments, 15 artifacts, 3 planeswalkers, and 36 lands. Looking at the stats that matter to our game plan, we have 40 sources of artifact token generation, 28 sources of unique artifact tokens, 14 sources of artifact token creatures, 5 artifact creatures, 10 cards that care about artifacts, 3 sources of AoE artifact animation, 7 cards that care about tokens, and 3 ways to get extra triggers out of our commander, giving us plenty of unique artifact token production to make the tokens our commander creates as big as possible, a decent number of artifact creatures and artifact creature tokens to make use out of the trample that Gimbal provides them with, along with ways to turn our non-creature artifacts and artifact tokens into creatures for even more damage, and capping off with payoffs for both our artifact and token heavy playstyle to generate additional value, alongside a handful of means to proc our commander more often to get even more token generation out of him. For general deck stats, we have 21 ramp sources, 15 card draw sources, 10 targeted removal sources, and 1 board wipe, with our ramp and draw sources being much higher than normal in this build since we need to dig and cast our artifact generating sources as quickly as possible to enable our commander, while our wipes are low since we're much more concerned about building up our board rather than leveling it and starting from scratch. Looking at our mana curve, we have 5 1-drops, 12 2-drops, 21 3-drops, 12 4-drops, 8 5-drops, and 6 6-drops, leaving us with a mid-weight curve that aims to get out as many sources of artifact token generation as quickly as possible, followed shortly by our commander to begin creating progressively bigger and bigger creature tokens as we dump more and more types of artifact tokens onto the battlefield, resulting with us either slowly grinding down our opponents with ever bigger trampling tokens, or with us bringing the game to a sudden end by animating all our artifacts and crashing in with them for a back-breaking alpha strike. The final price of this build then comes out to be $75.10 after upgrades. This price does not include tax or shipping and assumes that the price you paid for the Precon was $40. The price of the cards was calculated by using the cheapest listed marketplace price on TCG Player at the time of this recording. For side grades, we can exchange Gala Greeters for Goblin Kaboomist if we would like to add another unique token type and removal to the build in the form of landmines, though at the cost of ramp and reliability. Loyal Apprentice can be traded for Jaheira Friend of the Forest to turn all our tokens into mana dorks and rocks, though we will lose out on cheap and easy evasive token production. And Chrome Host Sea Shark can be swapped out for Arencia's Vile Duplication if we'd rather have another means to get a non-legendary token copy of our commander into play to generate extra bodies over the repeatable incubator tokens of its predecessor. Then for additional upgrades, we can transform Karn Living Legacy into Karn Scion of Urza for even better card advantage and access to more Karn Structs whose stats scale with our artifact count for even more damage. Cutthroat Negotiator can be cut in favor of Adrix and Nev Twin Casters to get us double the amount of tokens out of our commander and all our other token generators, and Research Thief can be scrapped to make room for Urza Lord High Artificer, who turns all our artifact tokens into mana rocks for even more ramp, which he can then turn around and use to have us cast free cards off the top of our deck for even more value, and even comes in with a free construct for additional board presence to boot. And lastly, we can slot out Echo Storm's artifact copying effect to slot in the excellent doubling season, which provides us with another way to double up on all our token production, on top of also making Gimbal's tokens twice as powerful as well by doubling up their counters, ensuring almost everything this deck wants to do is twice as effective, while also fittingly making our deck about twice as expensive with its inclusion for added flavor. Thanks everyone for sticking around until the end of the video. It looks like congratulations are in order yet again, as thanks to all of you fine folks participating in the 10k subscriber giveaway, we've been able to climb all the way to 11.5k subscribers in the past few weeks. So thank you all for helping the channel continue to grow. And if you haven't signed up for the giveaway already, be sure to do so either on the card on this video or in the link in the description for a chance to win a $100 Urtet Remnant of Memnarch deck built by me, along with various unlocked accessories and upgrades for it before the deadline on April 29th. Also, be sure to like that video, as if we're able to reach 1.5k likes before the drawing, my editor will generously add in a set booster of March of the Machine to the prize pool. So let's see if we can make that final prize even better. So, now that we've covered all 5 Precon upgrades for March of the Machine, it's time to begin covering our backlog from the Phyrexia All Will Be One polls, with Chiscoria Forge Tyrant being the first of 2 we'll be covering before we move on to the March of the Machine builds. That said, we do have a fresh new poll for you folks to vote on when that time comes, with its contenders being all the alternate team-up commanders from the Precons, those being Shalai and Halar, Alenda and Azor, Moira and Tashar, Saint Traft and Remcarolus, and Rashmi and Rabagan. So please cast your votes in the community tab, link in the description, before the deadline on April 28th, and let me know in the comments who you voted for and what commanders you want to see me cover from March of the Machine in the future. And lastly, before we close out, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't done so already, as this channel can't continue to grow without your support. And if you feel like showing your thanks by keeping me caffeinated while I make these videos, please consider buying me a coffee at the link in the description. And if any of you would like to support the channel in a different way, feel free to check out the other deck techs floating around my head if you'd like to see the latest builds, or click on the link above for a playlist of all the Cut Rate Commander episodes I've made so far. And with that, have a good one folks, and stay safe.